What is going on, everybody? And happy schedule release day here for the NFL and the Cleveland Browns. And you are officially tuned in to the OBR's 2025 Cleveland Browns schedule release show, where we are going to get you built up and ready to go for the official schedule release, which I believe happens at 8 o'clock. But we'll be able to talk about some things that have leaked. Before that, we'll talk about the Browns themselves. And we're just going to have an overall good time tonight talking about the Orange and Brown here on the Orange and Brown Report. The OBR is the best place in Cleveland for Cleveland Browns coverage. So make sure you get over to the OBR.com and you get subscribed and you make sure you're tuned in to all the good work that all these guys are putting in on the OBR.com. All the best Browns news is happening there. And then whether you're watching us live here tonight on YouTube or Twitch, make sure you hit subscribe. Make sure you hit like. And you're tuned in to all the great content going on with the OBR. I'm your host tonight, Michael Keefe, joining me here for the schedule release show, and we'll have more guys coming in and out, but you can see them on the screen here. We got Pete Smith, Brad Ward, Casey Kinnaman. Boys, listen, and there's Jeff Lloyd. He popped out for a minute, but he's back. Guys, in an offseason that is already chugging right along. Schedule release date is already here. Are we more excited to see what the schedule is, or are we more excited to see the video the Browns come out with to announce the schedule?
I'm curious to see what they do. I'm curious to see what they do with the video. I already know it's going to be a hellscape of a schedule, so the video is more interesting to me.
I mean, I don't know how they're going to beat Pete Weber. That's the.
I don't care about the social media posts, to be honest. Can I just be frank? The whole social media game that is being played. Do you care? Does anybody else care? Do you care, Mike? Do you care about that? It is.
The Chargers are the champs every year. They're fantastic.
I mean, don't hold back on the Tennessee Titans either. That thing that they did a couple years ago,
absolutely,
was the greatest. Yeah, I like it, Brad. I like fun. Sorry, man.
Okay. Sorry, I don't get that into it. I apologize. No, I'm more excited about the actual schedule. Hey, don't be a curmudgeon. Yep, man. Did sit right, Kramer. A lot of them are very cheesy. Some are well done, and some are super cheesy and corny. Let's be real.
It's intentional, Brad. They're intentionally cheesy. That's what they're going.
The cheesiest of cheese.
Fred Greetham's in the house. What's going on, Fred?
Oh, I don't know. I mean, I don't know what happened to my background. I don't know what happened to anything, but I'm here.
You seem disheveled, Fred. Are you okay?
A little bit. Just kind of getting the story, got the schedule ready to go. So I'm here.
Okay.
All right.
It just.
Listen, we're off to a flaming hot start here. We are off to a flaming hot start on the 2025 schedule release show.
Well,
Pete, I was going to go to Pete here for a minute because Pete, you talked about how you feel like, you maybe aren't all that excited about what the schedule is actually going to look like for the Cleveland Browns, because the Cleveland Browns are set to have a pretty tough schedule in this 2025 season. So just give us your thoughts on why you made that comment.
I mean, regardless of how the schedule lays out, there are very few gimmies on the schedule for what we're looking at with the Browns heading into the season, unless they get, we get a breakout star story at quarterback. The Kevin Stefanski talking about earned toughness, they're going to need it. They're out of their non-divisional schedule is tough. The only teams you sort of sit there and go, okay, I feel pretty good about this, are like the Patriots and the Titans. After that, it's not to say they can't win games. It's just they're gonna have to earn it, and they don't have a whole lot of credibility after last year. Now, I think they're gonna ultimately be able to run the ball in a way they couldn't last year. I think they're gonna play defense, and those things are gonna give them shots to win be in a lot of these games. I'm not convinced the Browns Steelers games won't be 5-3, but beyond that, it's gonna be difficult, and we knew that going in. I mean, the way it broke down in terms of just the sort of the schedule on their how the rotation was for divisions. they've got a rough go. NFC North, and that is a division where all four teams, just like we'd like to think the AFC North's in the same deal. All four teams are talking themselves into why they're going to be a good playoff team. AFC North, Bengals obviously barely missed. Steelers seem to find 10 wins somehow, and then the Baltimore Ravens, are going to do their best to, be the Cleveland Cavaliers and do really good in the regular season, and then sort of.
Ouch!
Hey!
Ouch!
Pete, can we not? Can we knock that
Too
off?
soon. Too soon.
Yeah, we are not over that.
Yeah,
Okay,
so
that just means more focus on the Browns.
I mean, look, if the Browns are able to be a good team, they will have earned it. I mean, that's the big thing that you're going to see when we get the official schedule.
We have our first breaking news out of Jack Duffin in the comments, who is confirming they will play the Steelers 2 times.
I have some.
I think Jack was calling those easier games, as Pete was just highlighting the Patriots, and then of course the Titans. I think Jack was commenting that the Steelers are easier games.
Well, I mean, listen, if you're playing the Steelers twice, again, the way just looking at it from here, you're a 2-run home run from winning the game. Neither team is looking like they're going to boast a whole lot of offense this year.
We have some unconfirmed, some leaks throughout the day. None of these are confirmed. Let me repeat that. None of these are confirmed. We won't have the actual confirmed schedule until 8:00. But we can look at some stuff that's been posted on social today if you guys would like.
Do it.
Let's do it. Sorry, we're dealing with some a little bit of technical difficulties here, trying to figure some stuff out here with. All right, let's do this. All right, let's take a look at what we got so far. This is via BKBZ, who is a lot of unconfirmed stuff on schedules today. Via @versus_everybody on Twitter. This was the Lions schedule. Excuse me. And it has the Browns on there in Detroit week 4. So that if you were looking for an easy start, that's step 1 towards a no, I would say.
Yeah.
Thoughts on going to Detroit week 4, Fred?
Yeah, I mean that would be obviously the reason when you're the last place team, you're supposed to get an easier schedule. The reason you're not getting an easier schedule because you're playing the NFC North, and the Lions had a great record, the Vikings had a great record, and you got an up and coming Bears team. And the Packers were also a good team. So it happens not to be of much help the year that you get the last place schedule because you're playing the NFC North. But yeah, I mean, early in the season, if that's when it for sure happens, it's going to be in the Dome. The Lions aren't the doormat, obviously. They're a Super Bowl contender. So, it is what it is. They got a tough schedule this year just by virtue of the divisions they're playing and so forth. So you got the London game, right after. If you play Detroit, on the road, then even though it's a home game in London, it's considered, a home game, but you're on the road, you're in London. And, and then it's just not going to be a lot of breathers, all the way around. I've seen the schedule, and, when you look at this, it's just, we can go through it and say win, loss, win, loss. Every time you do that, the teams that you think are going to be good usually are not good, and vice versa. So it's kind of a waste of time. It's a fun thing to do in May, I guess, but you really don't know, until you get to the season. I remember the year Rodgers' first year in the Jets, you thought that was going to be a big game, and he had wiped out his Achilles. And so all the games that year, it seemed like quarterbacks were injured. The year the Browns won 11-6. And so it was just kind of, throwing the dart against everything. So if you hang with us, the schedule goes out at 8. We have a story ready to go. We'll confirm some things when we get closer. But I got the preseason schedule. I got everything, ready to go, but sworn to secrecy.
Yeah, and listen, we know a lot of you guys have seen what is reported to be the schedule. We've all seen what's reported to be the schedule. But again, and just keeping it above board here, when we talk about things right now, everything is unconfirmed, as Brad Ward said before. So we're just kind of reporting on what's rumored to be the schedule at this point. And again, at 8:00, that's when we'll be able to confirm everything and go from there. But, all you got to do is look. You could look back to any year, and we do this schedule thing every year, and we get real excited about wins and losses and all that. But, man, I remember looking at last year's schedule thinking what a great start it was for the Cleveland Browns.
Huh.
When you had the Giants and the Raiders and the Cowboys and the Jaguars and all those teams, and the Browns started what'd they start? 1-6? 1-6
Yeah,
to start the year?
That's correct.
So the schedule.
They had the second hardest schedule preseason last year, which is based off of like Vegas odds, and they actually usually that varies a lot during the season in reality, but last season they actually finished the season with the exact same second hardest schedule, according to Sharp Analytics. So, and then this year they are projected to have the second hardest schedule. So no breaks for the Browns the last 2 years, even with a 4th place finish. They do end up with what is right now looks like the second hardest schedule based on Vegas odds. So the Lions, what happened? Okay, we're doing some different things here that are out of my control. All right, week 2 is once again unconfirmed at the Ravens by Kyle P. Barber. So thoughts on week 2 at the Ravens. And, so now you've got the thoughts of there also is, let me get to that one just so I can kind of put the beginning of this thing we've got a week 1 out there that the Browns will host, unconfirmed. Jordan Schultz, Browns will host the Bengals week 1. So if it's Bengals week 1 at Ravens week 2, and we know the Lions are week 4, potentially don't know this, unconfirmed. That's not a very easy start. So if you're looking at this thing in quarters, that's not great. This comes down to me about how this plays out isn't so much. I'm not trying to look at it as wins and losses here, but like let's look at this at quarterbacks wise, right? Like, how does this thing play out with quarterbacks? Like, let's go around. I just want to know, with that start in mind, Jeff, who do you think? Who do you think? We haven't seen any camp. We haven't seen it. We just saw rookie mini camp. But if you had to put your bet on one of these 4 quarterbacks to start the season, who would it be? And based on the difficulty of the schedule, just kind of elaborate on that. Does that change your mind at all at the beginning of the season? Like, if this would have started like cupcake easy, would it have been somebody different? I don't know.
Well, I think the thing is I think we can all agree it's really not cupcake easy. And the theory probably would be is that you go in week 1 and you try to go with where the chips are going to fall. I mean, you want to win, you hopefully want to be able to compete. And then you're going to get to a certain point where, we're not keeping up with the Joneses. We have 2 rookie quarterbacks. When is the time to get them on the field? Because it's not like, they're 24 and 23 years old. There's not much either one is going to gain by sitting. They're either going to be able to take a jump and be able to compete at the NFL level, or they're not. For me, though, I mean, ideally, I think if you're trying to win and you're trying to compete, you're going to start Joe Flacco. You have a relationship there. Joe has been in this offense. You kind of have a feel of what Joe can do. Yeah, there is the issue probably that maybe he is not capable of giving you 17 games at 40 and a half years old, which is just being straight realistic. But
Mhm.
I think a lot of it also has to come down to is whether you really believe the Browns can compete this year. If they really can compete this year, the schedule shouldn't matter. But if you think, hey, it's probably a year to get everything back in order, obviously you have 2 first-round picks coming again in 2026, but it's about hopefully seeing improvement. And, Brad, we talked about this last week. It's not necessarily going to be totally about wins and losses. It's hopefully going to be about looking at this as being a much more overall better product, more competitive games, more 60-minute games, and some of those games that were 17-point losses, double-digit losses, getting that closer to, single digits, having you be competitive in the fourth quarter. That's obviously, the idea of where this could be. And then hopefully, you peel off a win or two somewhere this season that maybe you shouldn't have gotten because, you got young kids growing. Hopefully things got better. This rumored game of Cincinnati week 1, I actually kind of like it. I'm not going to lie to you. What are you going to
Yeah.
say right now about the Cincinnati Bengals defense? Me? If the Browns run game goes back to what the Browns run game was been most of the time during the Stefanski regime, all right, well, I'm going to run it 40 times. I got 2 rookie running backs, and hopefully, Joe Burrow's watching the game whether he's actually playing it.
I agree. Week 1 against the Bengals or at home, I think is a good start. We've seen that movie before, right? So I think was that at home with the Denzel pick 6? Wasn't that week 1 against the Bengals? I
No.
believe so.
In
No,
Cincinnati.
Yes,
Oh,
it
in
was a couple
Cincinnati,
years
but
ago.
week 1 though, right? Yeah.
No, that was
Um,
actually
no.
that was a little
It was in
later.
October.
no. Week 1 was the rainstorm that came out
Yes.
of nowhere.
That's
Yep,
right. I
Miles, the
apologize.
Miles Garrett over the center crossover sack. Yeah,
Okay, that was week 1 at home though, right? Against the Bengals.
Mhm.
yes, sir.
All right. James says in the chat, this season should be about finding out who one of these rookies, if one of these rookies can be a franchise quarterback, period. Anything else is a waste of time. Casey Kinnaman, A, is that true? B, can this team contend? Can they stay in this? And who do you have your money on starting the season?
I mean, there's a shred of truth to it. I mean, you do need to see what these guys have because on the other side of this year, you're going to have 2 first-round picks. You need to know definitively whether you think one's a franchise quarterback or not. But that doesn't mean you throw them into the fire day one. If they show you they're ready, by all means. But I'm in lockstep with Jeff. I think this is Joe Flacco to start the year. Talk about like no bunnies on this schedule. So we know the Bengals week 1. We know the Vikings week 5. The ones that we're going with that we're seeing that are alleged, at the Ravens, and then you're home or at the Lions right before you go to London. Those are all Super Bowl contending teams. Those are all teams that have Super Bowl aspirations. I'm not trying to go out there and shatter a rookie's confidence day one. I just don't think that's the move, unless they just take it by the reins and start running with it. And it's obvious they're ready for the moment. But and we talked about going back to Stefanski's offense. I think with Joe, you're at least going to be competent and let your defense keep you in games. And if you just look at the Bengals are going to score points. The Browns are very familiar. The Bengals don't have a defense. That could play out. That could be a weird game. Baltimore scores points. The Lions score points. We don't know about the Vikings with JJ. That's an incomplete. I like their roster. We don't know what that's going to look like. But I think you're going to need to go out there and, with the goal of putting 20 points on the board these first couple of weeks. Now, I don't think that sitting a rookie out there, I don't think you feel good about that.
Who's your guy then? Flacco?
Yeah, I think Flacco's the week 1.
All right. Pete, you've said a couple times that you think that best case scenario for the Browns would be to have Pickett and the 2 rookies be the 3 that emerge here just because of their age, I think. Who do you have your money on starting week 1 and your thoughts on what would be a rather difficult start here with what is unconfirmed so far? And how the question here becomes like, how do you balance competing and making sure you learn what these quarterbacks are at the same time? Like you have to do justice to the guys in the locker room that are veterans. At the same time, you do have to learn what these quarterbacks are.
So I'll say Joe Flacco because who cares? Like by a hair. I think it's completely open. They're not married to anybody, and they have no reason to default to anything. So whoever is ultimately the best option, they have every incentive to put them on the field. The schedule has no impact on how I would treat the quarterback position whatsoever. And ultimately, I would look at this as what is in the best interest of the team. Because if you sit there and go, certain elderly radio hosts suggesting that Shedeur is set up to start week 5, if he hasn't earned it, I guarantee you Kevin Stefanski will be fired. And it won't be by the owner. It will be by the locker room. And they can approach this season with a very good feeling from ownership, that ownership's more than on board, that they look at this as an evaluation and building and everything else. The locker room doesn't have enough, is going to be running out of the guys that have experienced success with Stefanski. And if they go through another season where they're just awful and it feels like they're unserious because they're just seeing what two guys can do, then they're going to lose those guys. And ultimately, Jimmy Haslam's going to be put in a position where he now has to fire these guys because there's no faith. So you have to play this dead seriously. You got to play like you can win. You just went through the Deshaun Watson thing where it was a farce. You cannot repeat that situation. So if the rookies are good enough to get on the field, great. But yes, my best case scenario is that Kenny Pickett, Shedeur Sanders, and Dylan Gabriel, in whatever order, are the best 3 quarterbacks, and they can cut Joe Flacco because those 3 represent real swings at finding an option at quarterback. Where Joe Flacco, look, I'm gonna put it out there, they're not going to sign him to a contract extension for 3 years and 100 years if he has a great year. So if he's good and he's the best option and he helps you win this game, great. You need that. This team cannot endure just being terrible and then going, oh, we'll be fine because we're going to get a quarterback next year. You need to, and the Browns are communicating this with, certainly some of this is through the lens of what's the best way to get quarterback development by practicing faster, getting more reps and all that stuff. But if you are saying, talking about earned toughness and all this other stuff, there couldn't be anything less on message than earned toughness. We're just going to throw the kid in there and see what happens. And I don't care if that is, a 2-6 start. You got to play this thing, and you got to get these guys in a mindset, in a way that you're building or continuing to build a culture that's going to care. Otherwise, you are poisoning the pool as far as guys wanting to come here, guys wanting to stay here, and all those other things. So it's really important that they play winning football, and whatever quarterback's going to give them that, great. We can talk about, well, Shedeur's got juice and all this other stuff, and people want to see him. I don't care. And the other part about this, we love to talk about this idea that if I don't see it, me personally, on the field on Sundays, that the team doesn't see it. Like they're not there every day in the practice field or the team meetings and all these other things. They're going to be able to figure out if these kids can play or not. And if they're good enough, they're going to get on the field. But we always get into this notion, we have no idea what this kid can do because we've never seen him, as if the team is not watching him every day. And then we replay a situation where Johnny Manziel is laying on the ground behind the field 20 yards and had no idea what he was doing because we had to throw him out there to see what he could do. You have to take this seriously, and you have to make this team earn it, feel like they're going towards something, not just we got to find out if 2 kids that, as far as I'm concerned, look, I am open-minded. I would love nothing more than Shedeur Sanders or Dylan Gabriel to be the starter and to be able to go into next year and go, man, I'm going to get an offensive tackle. I'm going to get, something else with those first-round picks, and we're done with this whole thing. But as far as I'm concerned, until somebody shows me something, and it's probably going to be they're in the conversation of rookie of the year, I'm working on the assumption that we're drafting a quarterback next year. So anything beyond, anything else isn't a huge deal to me. If they get on the field and they're great. Other than that, I'm still going to be sitting here going, I've got to sit here and watch the kid at South Carolina. I've got to sit here and watch Cade Klubnik. I've got to watch all these kids all year because chances are that's going to be the conversation.
Yeah. You did say at the beginning of that, of your, what was very well said about the Browns season and how they balance this, that the schedule does not impact your thoughts on that at all. Can you
Correct.
elaborate? So it doesn't matter to you what you're not looking for like an ideal week at some point during the season to start. I mean, obviously it impacted, DTR, and we've seen situations like that before. Wouldn't an easier team or a struggling team be a better spot to start a rookie than a more difficult team?
Ultimately, my focus isn't on find me a soft spot for the rookie. It's win football games. And just from, if what you laid out is what's there, the Browns continue to go 3-3 in the division basically every year at this point. They seem to split this thing. So and Kevin Stefanski is very good at game planning against the division. He's had a whole lot of success against these guys, even when he has been a perceived underdog against these teams. They had absolutely no business beating the Ravens last year. And granted, the Ravens did everything they could to help. But that is still, you have the opportunity to go out there and get at least one or two of those games just by familiarity and understanding how to play these teams. They're good at that stuff. Find a way to win games, because that's ultimately what you need. If you're sitting there at 0-4, 0-5, we can sit here and go, we're going to dismiss it as this and that. Ownership may be cool with it, but I don't think that locker room is. And it ultimately it's going to come to a head at some way or another. Or at the very least, Kevin Stefanski will lose a significant amount of credibility over the course of the season. He will be a lesser coach in the eyes of that locker room.
Is there any world that you can envision this? I'm going to ask the same question to you guys, Mike and Fred, after this, Pete. But Pete, is there any world that you can envision where a rookie starts week 1?
Yes. Again, and the reason is pretty simple. They're not married to anybody. They've got no reason to care if Flacco's not good, or, I mean, even if he is, and it's close, I'd probably go with the younger guy. But like, ultimately, you got to go out there and win football games, and anything less than that is going to be a problem. So if Shedeur Sanders is great right out of the rip, throw him in. He should start. Earn it. Earn toughness. Be the earned toughness team that you say you're going to be. Dillon Gabriel, if he's great right out of the chute, he can execute the way Kevin Stefanski wants this offense to work. Put him in there. If Kenny Pickett, if the Browns, they're sending – well, let's be clear. I think the Browns are going to give Kenny Pickett every chance to win this job based on just the messaging they're giving with this kid. But if they have said with giving up the pick that I'm still bitter about to get Kenny Pickett, that they think there's more in there. So if there is more in there, great, put him in there. See if he can be the next Sam Darnold with itty bitty hands. I don't care, but just you got to find a way to win games. And we focus so much on the quarterback position, but if Dylan Sampson is better than Quinshon Judkins, I want Dylan Sampson to be the running back. Like, let's not make this any more complicated than it is. Put the best dudes out there that are going to help you win football games.
Yeah, it's just evaluating that in training camp, in joint practices, in the preseason, where Kenny Pickett has fooled a lot of people before. It becomes a difficult task, I think, when you have 4 guys.
Granted, and that's the whole challenge here. And the Browns are laying the gauntlet. I complimented the hell out of them for this. We'll see if they're going to hold up to it. Bringing in 56 guys to practice, because you're specifically saying we want to be able to practice faster. We want to maximize reps, and we are doing this to train our staff and set the expectation for how this thing's going to go when we ramp it up. Again, it's certainly about the quarterback position and getting as many reps as possible for those guys, but it's also about hopefully upping the physicality. And you're doing 2 sets of joint practices, which again says learning lessons from the past. And again, some of this was out of their control with the injuries they had at like offensive tackle, but they were not ready for the season. Deshaun owns some of that too, because he didn't care. But they've got to be more physical, and if they're going to be a good team, whatever you think that is, they're going to have to be more physical than most of the teams they play this year.
Yeah, 100%. You have to find different ways to win, and toughness is going to have to be one of them. Fred, any shot in your mind that, or what would it take for a rookie to start week 1? Do you think that's possible? And is it as easy as just best player at the position starts at this point with 4 guys?
Well, I think that because of where you drafted these guys, 3rd, 5th round, there's no preconceived notions. The thing that I keep coming back to is we all knew, there's no secret. Everybody knew the Browns needed a quarterback. What was their first move this offseason to get a quarterback? Kenny Pickett. Just like most of you and most people watching, when that trade went, my thought was, oh, they just traded 3rd round or 3rd string quarterback for 3rd string quarterback, and they're just, there to let them compete for the backup job. But when you look at it, the totality, I even look now, why did they even sign Flacco 2 weeks before the draft? It was whether they knew then, they made the decision, we're not taking a quarterback, so we better get another veteran here. Because I think Joe Flacco would have been there after the draft, unless there's something I don't know. But with that being said, it's easier if it was between Flacco and Pickett, it's easier to start Flacco and then switch to Pickett. But it's a new dynamic now with the rookies. There's a lot of different things. You really hope that all those guys play well. I don't expect Flacco to really play a lot in preseason. This is a chance for Pickett to play, the 2 rookies. You want to get a good feel on those 2 rookies. We know Andrew Berry does not cut rookies, but he looks at these guys as assets. And I would not be surprised if he trades one of them, not one of the rookies, but one of these 4 guys, like they tried to do last year with Jameis Winston, Tyler Huntley, and they actually cut down to 53 and had 4 quarterbacks, and then ultimately released Huntley. If Pickett shows something, he's probably your most tradable asset because he's got $2.6 million, and somebody could need a quarterback, could be the Saints if their rookie doesn't show and they don't feel like they have anything and he's the best available, you can get an asset for him. But I don't see Gabriel or Sanders going anywhere. So I feel it would be Pickett will be the opening day starter unless they trade him, because I feel like you can let Joe Flacco go and you could probably pick him up again if you need be. But now you got 2 other rookies you're going to probably keep. Again, if they look at them all spring and summer and say, boy, we made a major mistake on Gabriel or Sanders, which I don't think they will. I think they will stay with those guys. Nobody gets injured. I see Pickett being the starting quarterback to open the season, and then they turn to whoever they feel's the most ready. Because as we know, how many quarterbacks do the Browns go through? They go through everybody and everybody on their practice squad in this team. I've watched them with 5 starters, 4 starters the last couple of years. And so you put that all together. I made a comment one time on the radio that the year Baker Mayfield the plan was for him to sit the bench. And I said this on the Mike Trivisano show. I was just filling in for somebody. And I said, Mike, all the time, all the years I've watched the Browns, they've thrown quarterback after quarterback out there before they were ready. And they ruined so many quarterbacks. This guy, from what I saw in training camp, Mayfield, is the most ready I've seen since I've covered the team. And the plan is for him to sit on the bench this year. Well, then we all know what happened. 3rd game, Thursday Night Football, Tyrod Taylor gets hurt. Mayfield comes in, boom, he lights it up. They open the garage beers or the freezers or whatever it is that night. And so I think between Sanders and Gabriel, they would be standing in the wings. I don't know if they would start. To me, it's easier to bench a Pickett than it is to start a guy and then bench him right to the get-go. Yeah. But it goes back to what you were saying. Who's really earned the job off-season and training camp?
Mike Keefe, who's your guy week 1? And how do you balance winning and what you need to find out this year?
Yeah, listen, I think the best part about the Browns situation is that they are beholden to none of these guys. There isn't a single guy. There isn't a guy on this roster that's, I know Flacco did his thing here a couple of years ago, but it was a short sample size, and now he's another year beyond old. And I know fans love him, but they're not beholden to play Joe Flacco. They're not beholden to Kenny Pickett or the rookies. So they really can go into this training camp and say, listen, and this is what I'd rather have them do, because I'm along the lines of, I don't know what you gain outside of, do you win maybe 2 games more than you would have if you didn't. I don't know what you gain by playing Joe Flacco. I just don't know. I don't know what the gain is there. To be honest with you,
Winning.
I feel like if they do play Joe Flacco, it makes me feel like the security these guys feel in their job is not as solid and strong as we think it is, because they feel like they need to win more games than what they're letting on. But otherwise, yes, a 4-quarterback competition, and just play the guy that you think is the best. And if you think it's Kenny Pickett right off the start because you're not sure if Gabriel or Sanders are ready to take the reins right from the jump, if that's the concern, then fine, play Kenny Pickett. Because at least with him, you have something to gain. But the trick is here, guys, and I know it got said in the comments before, but you're looking at 2 first-round picks next year. You really want to go into next year with an understanding on whether you're using those first 2-round picks to either trade up or to get a top-level quarterback next year, or if you found that guy this year.
Yeah.
So you got to figure that out through the course of this, because really the whole success of building the team in next year's draft, I mean, if you feel like you found Gabriel or Sanders and they can be the guy moving forward, and now you got 2 first-round picks that you can build around that guy, you got to know that going in. You got to know that going in. So for me, may the best man win. I'm just kind of on that same boat with the Flacco thing. I just don't know what we gain there.
But it's may the best man win except Flacco? Is that what you're saying?
No, not necessarily. Listen. If you go into this camp and Joe Flacco is so head and shoulders better than everybody else, then you play Joe Flacco.
You got to try to win games.
That also means really bad things for the other 3 guys. That means you didn't see it.
Not necessarily.
I think so. No. If Joe Flacco is head and shoulders better than the other 3 guys, I think it doesn't say good things about the other 3 guys. If it's close, if Joe Flacco and Shedeur Sanders or Dylan Gabriel or Kenny Pickett are kind of like playing along the same lines and it's a close competition, then I would pick the other guy over Flacco.
Listen, Flacco knows how to run this offense. There's proof of concept. He's done it before with Stefanski. He's not going to need a ton of reps to get it. He's going to know. I mean, I just think he's probably going to give you your best chance to win early in the season. And if you put around him a good running game and a good defense, maybe you can compete for a couple weeks and win some games and make this a relevant season, which is something that you just can't just throw to the wayside. To Pete's point, you have to compete for the veterans on this team, or at least try to. So there's my value in Flacco is that I think he honestly gives you the best chance to win early in the season, unless somebody comes and really takes the job from him on this roster. Do you agree with that, Jeff, or do you think I'm crazy for saying that?
No, I do, but I also kind of agree with Mike's point. I mean, if we're only going to win 5 games, what's the point of it being Joe Flacco and Kenny Pickett?
But you don't know that ahead of time.
Well, you would have a pretty good idea of it. Like, look, I'm on record now as to where I believe the rookies will start the most amount of games. Whether it's Sanders, whether it's Gabriel, who's going to start the more, I don't know. But I do believe between the 2 of them, they will start the majority of the games this year for Cleveland. And honestly, that's the way it should go. But they're going to have to earn it. You know what I'm saying? And look, I don't think Pickett or Flacco is going to take a snap in a preseason game. Because right now, you're looking at what is the future of this team. Granted, that future may not even be here yet. That future may just have finished his spring semester. It's getting ready for his summer and his fall in whatever college campus we all think they're currently at, whoever the top one is.
Yeah.
But I think the plan should be to hopefully accelerate the younger guys as fast as possible. You know, you want to see, and even still, you want to see if either one of these guys, and, you know, look, is it far-fetched to believe that you're going to know at the end of this year that one of them is the guy and you're not going to use one of those 2 first-round picks on a quarterback. I don't know if you're going to get enough of a sample size or a belief from Gabriel or Sanders that would change you to use those 2 first-round picks elsewhere. But the plan should be the accelerated path. It's not far-fetched to believe that they could be ready for week 1, but it's also, week 1, home against Cincinnati. Browns always play well against Cincinnati. The defense usually handles themselves pretty well. You're going to try to emphasize the running game. It's not far-fetched to believe that somewhere in the next 3 months, Sanders and Gabriel got to the level where you're comfortable with saying, look, I don't know what to do here, but there's no reason to keep Flacco and Pickett, both of them here any longer, because the kids are close. They may not be week 1 close, but maybe they're October close.
Okay,
Brad,
Pete, what were you
back? I just want to go back real quick because I just want to say, again, if they go through camp and Joe Flacco is just clearly better than these other guys, then go ahead and play Joe Flacco. I'm not saying like ignore.
You can't have everybody look at you and say, "Wait a minute, we're not playing the best guy." Exactly.
But I did that last year for 9 weeks.
I would take a little exception with. I'm not sitting here making the assumption that I think Joe Flacco gives you a better chance to win than any of the 3 other guys. Okay. I know he played well for like 6 weeks. He played reasonably well for 6 weeks with the Cleveland Browns. They had this lightning in a bottle run. They managed to win games. They managed to win games with him throwing pick sixes left and right. Listen, he went to another place that gave him a shot last year, and you could say whatever you want to about Indy and the system or whatever, but it wasn't good last year for him. And I just don't know. I think a lot of people are assuming they're going to just catch this lightning in a bottle and Joe Flacco is going to come out and throw for 350 yards and 3 touchdowns every game. I don't mean to be a skeptic about Joe Flacco, and I don't want to say anything bad about him, but like I think people need to really temper their expectations out of what they're going to get out of Joe Flacco.
Yeah, I get that, what you're saying, but I also do think there's a chance, right? He may be done. His arm may have already fallen off, quote unquote, the way we talk. But I think that there's a chance that you give him, I'm not asking him to play a whole season. I'm asking him to get him off to a good start. That's what I want. He's my starter. Give me 6 weeks, get us out to 3-3, 4-2, and then his arm falls off. Fine, but he served his purpose, and he got you off to a good start. Plus, I do think it's very possible in the Chad has mentioned O-line a couple times and how important the O-line will be in all of this as far as the rookie quarterbacks. And I agree with that, but I do think the O-line will be improved. And I think the run game will be improved. And if the defense plays up to what they potentially could be, you could be talking about Flacco being the quarterback of an entirely different team than he was in 23, where they couldn't run the ball for a yard, Mike. They had to try to throw the ball to run out the clock at the end of games. I mean, he had no advantages in the run game at all that year. So I'm just saying it feels like he's starting ahead because he understands the offense. He's played a million games in the NFL. If somebody comes and takes it from him, that's fine. But I don't know. Pete, you were going to say something about Pickett?
Okay, preseason. If Joe Flacco takes a preseason step, I'm firing everybody that has anything to do with the Browns. Everybody. And I'll say Kenny Pickett's a waste of my time too. He had 158.3 QB rating. Somewhere, we're still hearing about this from Pittsburgh. And then it was mediocre. I have no value. Don't play starters in preseason. Joe Flacco represents a couple things. He's a baseline. He's a baseline for competency, and he's a baseline for professionalism. He talked about the whole mentorship thing. He doesn't need to take his arms and wrap them around these rookies and go, this is how it's done. But he's played 700,000 games in the NFL, and all these guys are looking at him going, how do I do this? How do I last to be able to play 40 games or to the age of 40 in the NFL? He doesn't have to, take them by the hand and say, this is how you do it. But if they just watch him, if they just ask the questions that are going to come up in the quarterback room, that's a real value. The other value is that Joe Flacco should not need many reps. In fact, the early part of camp, he should take very few reps. In fact, we should get a pretty clear indication of how the Browns feel about these other guys because if he starts needing to take more and more reps, that may be an indication of how they sort of feel about the overall situation. And again, I have no – you asked me to pick somebody, so I picked somebody. I have no favorite in this because I think everybody's viable, and I'm just hoping that, we get one of these, preferably the three guys who are in their 20s, rise to the top and makes it happen. But yes, Joe Flacco could be okay because he should have a better running game. He should have a capable defense. They should be able to have a more viable play action game than they've had in previous years, and that should all help him. So it hopefully will at least reduce some of the volatility where we're not asking him to throw 50 passes in a game, and now he's throwing potentially 2 pick sixes because he has to. But he does bring a certain element of wisdom and confidence into that room. The veterans have seen it work with him. That gives them a little something. Now, that is all very useful because now it gives you something to compare it to, whether it's Pickett, Sanders, Gabriel, whoever. If they come in and take it from him, that is going to give them confidence that that guy can come in and play football. Now, ultimately, it's going to have to happen and make it work. But I'm all for that element. I have no problem with them signing Joe Flacco, and I do worry that somebody like the Steelers the Steelers did try, and Joe Flacco basically told them to stick it. But if at the end of this thing, if the Browns have to cut him and eat the $3 million or whatever it is, because the other guys are so good, that's a huge win for them. But beyond that, I'm not worried about it. I'm completely open-minded to the quarterback position because they're not tethered to anybody. They could just let it play out. And if they are letting these guys rep out, and hopefully we are talking about 3 preseason games where these guys, just Sanders and Gabriel are just ripping it for 4 quarters. Yeah. And we get to feel good about, seeing these guys play one way or the other, that it's going to give us a nice feel, give you that taste to see if maybe there's something there or not. And granted, if they play well, we're going to all lose our minds and be way too hopefully not to the DeShone Kizer level, but that people are going to believe they can step in and play, which is fine. That's a world I'm happy to live in.
Yeah. Casey Kinnaman, what do you think about all this?
I just view Flacco as a safety net. He's the, like P said, he's the baseline. He's not going to require all the snaps. They'll give you the most practice time to allow these young guys to develop, show you what they have. But at the end of the day, Flacco's competent. He's getting those reads, that ball's coming out, and it raises the floor for me. And I think that's easier to start with if one of these guys don't take the job from it. The best case scenario is one of these rookies takes the job.
Yeah.
And neither of these rookies or I was in favor of drafting at the time. None of that matters. All that matters is the best man for the job wins the job, and that they can judge it without being biased, and the play dictates, because you have to surround and sell this to the locker room. For those veterans, for Myles Garrett, they know that they can win with Joe Flacco because of the proof of concept. But if they see it in practice and these rookies are just killing them, going out there and going for the jugular, and they have the confidence to play him, I have no problem with starting the rookie to start the season. I just think Joe will have the leg up, and it'll be more comfortable to bring these guys along and let them show you when they are ready, as opposed to just anointing somebody.
Yeah. I tend to agree that Joe will kind of feel like the guy at the end of all this. Like, they could have a great camp, but I think it would take a lot to be able to go into week 1 and say, Shedeur gives us a better chance to win than Joe does week 1.
Let me ask you this.
Yeah.
With Joe Flacco on the roster, if somebody wins the job, do you feel more confident heading into week 1 that person was able to beat out somebody who's at least shown success with the Browns? Or would you feel just as confident if Joe Flacco did not exist and they just had the other 3 battle it out and that winner is starting? I just feel like that Joe Flacco element gives you that little bit of, we've seen it work with Joe. If somebody comes in and beats him, I'm a little more excited, as opposed to, and I've said this all along with Kenny Pickett, Brad Ward, the avatar for this, terrified that Kenny Pickett was going to be the starter. I can't argue with that based on what I've seen with that. But if he's beaten somebody who's credible, it's going to give everybody a little peace of mind. Now, ultimately, you're probably still going to be going to week 1, sitting there, let's see how it goes.
Yeah.
but he will at least beaten somebody with some credibility. And I do think that's important. I just think that's part of the reason Flacco's there.
Yeah.
Give them something to beat. They've got to get to this point to be able to matter, as opposed to, the obviously the worst case scenario. And I don't think this will happen, but we get, they get to the end of this thing and they go, oh man, none of these guys can play. We got to just pick somebody to go put in the game.
Yeah. No, that's a really good point. If he wasn't there, he kind of sets a bar that does make you feel better if you feel like somebody cleared that, right, to start week one. Here's my thing. Like, if you're Shedeur Sanders, say Shedeur Sanders wins the job and you're going to play him week one, or it's going to be Flacco week one, and you look at, like, here's my question. Going against the Bengals week one, unconfirmed, at home, right? Is it going to be like an offensive game plan that is catered to a rookie, trying to make things easier for him, this, that, and the other, versus what you could potentially do, like maxed out in your normal offense with Flacco? Because, like, doing one versus the other to get one on the field seems counterproductive. And I worry about them, like, doing that. Like, oh, he can do it, but we're going to have to put in a game plan that caters to a rookie in his first ever game. I mean, it has to happen at some point, right? But I mean, week one feels maybe too rushed. I'm not saying that somebody can't come win it, but I would feel better if somebody can come win it and they can be like, oh, we can just put our offense in, period. That's hard to say about any rookie, I would think, week one. No?
I would hope that regardless of who the quarterback is, that based on the work they put in, that they're going to come into week one going, hey, if we run the football and we play good defense, we're going to have a shot. I don't care who it is, because ultimately that's who they have to be. Now, if somebody is great and comes in and lights it up, all the better. And Joe Flacco certainly has the capability of putting up passing yards and all those other things. But ultimately, if you're asking me what is the best path forward for the Browns, the quarterback is almost immaterial in that conversation. Run the ball, play great defense, don't turn it over, shorten the game, do those things, steal the Pittsburgh Steelers identity from that standpoint. They do the thing we all, that thing we all hate. It's 13-10, and they've got a shot to win at the end, and they pull it off because there's this feeling of the Steelers just get it in the fourth quarter. No, they sucked for 3.5 quarters on offense, but their defense kept them in so long that they finally got something going. They was able to win the game. I'm perfectly happy to steal that formula.
Yeah. I feel like that might have to be the formula for part of the season. Go ahead, Mike.
I was going to throw it over to Fred for a minute, because we're sitting there talking about, these quarterbacks and a lot of conversation about the rookies for sure. But obviously just getting done with rookie camp last week, Fred, and you being a guy that's around the building a lot, what were your main takeaways, especially regarding the rookie quarterbacks and Gabriel and Sanders, from just their first impressions? Obviously, we know rookie camp doesn't mean a whole heck of a lot, but your takeaways from what you've heard and what you've seen and all that about Gabriel and Sanders.
Well, I was impressed with both of them, talking to them, on Saturday. Just the way they handled themselves. Obviously, they're both skilled at that. Gabriel, on the first look at him, what he reminded me of was a left-handed Russell Wilson. And you think he was a 3rd round pick, and a lot of things. I do think obviously height matters, but if he would have been 6'2", 6'3", what I saw there, he was making all the throws. He threw a better ball the first day, but I think Sanders did as well. I mean, they came off to me, obviously, in non-contact is pretty good, worth the squeeze. So we'll see as time goes on, and the next time we get to see him on the 28th, at OTAs and then you have Pickett and Flacco to compare him to. So I wouldn't be surprised by anything, but I do think that they both have a chance. I haven't really seen Kenny Pickett throw the ball or anything live. We haven't had anything and so forth, but
He
schedule
certainly
is
seems
live now.
It is
If you
live.
want to, well, it's 8:00. If you want to confirm anything, I can. I'm going to post, our story, or Barry's going to.
Okay.
They do open
Gotta-
against the Bengals,
Yeah,
and they
gotta-
close against the Bengals.
You can confirm this for me, Fred. Is it a glimmering sea of 1:00 games? My dream.
It is. No
Yes,
prime
it is.
time.
Yes, live the dream, baby. No prime time.
They have one 9:30. That's in Vikings. They have
London
two
game, yeah.
4:00s, and one's on the West
How
Coast.
sad is it that 9:30 is better for us than 1 or even 7:30 at night?
Dude, how
Love it.
They gotta
Dude,
just
but
stop
how
playing Browns
boring,
games
though.
Wednesdays at noon.
Yeah, our Stories Live
how
has all of them. They do play the Lions in Detroit, the fourth week, and just before they go to Minnesota, play there in London.
Let me stop you there, Fred. We've got a graphic. We've got the schedule. We've got it ready to go. So, Mike, you want to do this? You tell me. We'll go through this whole thing. You ready?
Let's do it.
All right.
All right. So there it is. The only one we didn't talk about, just as a prediction side of things, was that week 3 game at home against Green Bay. So they go home road to kick things off weeks 1 through 4. Again, Cincinnati week 1 is something we've gotten a little bit used to, as that's happened a few times recently. I think the Baltimore week 2 game, it feels like in the past couple of years we've had to wait a while to see Baltimore. So getting Baltimore real early in the season. Again, Green Bay, we're talking about look at the records from last year from all those teams, even Cincinnati finishing with wins. So that is
double digits.
that is a
That's
hell of a
insane.
test for the Cleveland Browns to start the year, guys. Now that we see that this is official, what are your thoughts?
Let's go through it all, Mike, and then let's go around.
Oh,
Then
we'll
we'll
do
do
the whole
quarters.
schedule. Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Mr. T said it best. Pain.
Yeah, that's brutal though.
I pity the Browns.
Oh, hold
Where'd
on.
it go?
Back one.
Okay, weeks 5 through 9. We know that London game, Minnesota, that was reported a while ago. Then they're going to go to Pittsburgh. So the first game against the Steelers. So they'll see all 3 AFC North teams in the first 6 weeks of the season. Home against Miami, a game you always want to see in December. Unfortunately, this is not going to happen in December. And then they go to New England to take on the Patriots before that week 9 bye. So the Browns will get a little break there, week 9. And then coming out of the bye, week 10. So they're at New England before the bye. They get the bye, and then they're at the Jets. They will wrap up their season schedule with Baltimore in week 11. They're going to go to Las Vegas in week 12.
Okay.
And then back-to-back home games, the 49ers and the Tennessee Titans. They'll get their first look at Cam Ward, I'm assuming, in week 14 before wrapping up their schedule at Chicago, and then back-to-back home games, Buffalo and Pittsburgh, and they will finish the way they started week 1 at home against Cincinnati, week 18 on the road against the Cincinnati Bengals. So, boys, I think slide number 1 is one that a lot of people are going to focus on because that is the gauntlet portion of the schedule. And then the rest of the schedule, a lot of games that you'd like to think they can compete in, but just send it around. Brad, you go ahead and start it, man. You've seen the whole schedule now. What are your thoughts on how this looks for the Browns?
Yeah, I mean, you guys tell me what slide you want me to go to as we go through this, but I want to get your guys' kind of impressions on the whole schedule, you know what I mean, as an overview, and then we can kind of break it down further if you want. But if you look at the first 4, obviously this is extremely difficult, but the first thing that, I like Cincinnati at home week 1, at Baltimore week 2, not great, but like you said, they haven't had them early in a while, so that's a little interesting. But then you get 3 straight in the NFC North. Is that right?
Mm-hmm.
So you're going to go Green Bay, at Detroit, Minnesota. So you get 3/4 of that division out of the way, all in a row there. Teams that play somewhat similar style, 3 really good teams. So it's a tough start. They elect not to take the bye off of the London game. because you have that choice. So they're not gonna take the bye there, which I think they were probably rewarded with at week 9 at Pittsburgh, Miami, New England. All right, so it's incredibly tough start. I think there are some winnable games in there. Focus on your division. Maybe you try to steal one against Green Bay or Minnesota. You know what I mean? You could get out to that best case scenario, maybe win 3 of your first 7, right? 4 maybe with Miami in there. That would be like best case scenario, I think, if you were playing really, really well. But New England, obviously not very good. But the second half of the schedule is not that as bad as I thought. Like, it gets lighter. Maybe I'm crazy, but I think it gets lighter. So you go at New England, Miami at New England. Okay, much better. Then a bye week, Jets, Baltimore, Vegas, San Francisco, Tennessee. It's not terrible. I think it lightens up quite a bit there. And then down the stretch, of course, you've got Buffalo. But outside of that, I think you've got winnable games. Second half of the schedule seems much, much lighter to me. First 6 is just absolutely crash course against some really good teams, but I think it lightens up tremendously from week 9 on, in my opinion.
Hey,
Jeff?
Brett, just real quick before we move on. The Browns did release their graphic, and they've got it all on one page. If we want to just put that up so it's all in one spot.
Sure.
Let's do that, and then we can put it up right here. And now, there's your schedule right there, all in one spot for the Cleveland Browns.
Okay.
I'm here. I hear you, Brad. It kind of bleeds together. I hear you.
That's tough to see.
But I mean, I think what we were kind of, some things that we saw are pretty much all lined up as far as, the validity of, what we saw. I know I was told, that I was told last night it was going to be opening and closing with the Bengals. Again, I like these matchups. That's not, the Bengals, are a good team, but it seems like the Browns kind of handle them well, match up with them well. There's, the AFC, the NFC North, and it feels weird because it doesn't feel like it's been that long since we've seen most of these teams. It doesn't really feel like it's been, I guess 3 seasons since we've seen these teams. And granted, with that extra, crossover game, that's how the Bears were on the schedule a couple of years ago. You certainly see the change in some of these teams and the growth in some of these teams. Now we're, Detroit considered, probably one of the top tier teams in the entire NFL. Chicago would have been a team you probably would have rather faced earlier in the season than maybe later in the season. A lot of newness, new coaching, working in this system, trying to pair it with Caleb Williams. Ideally that would have been something you wanted to see earlier in the season. Maybe they're going to hope, maybe for them, they would find their groove later on in the year. Buffalo would have been nicer, maybe closer to week 18 as opposed to 16, because they could always have the ability to run away and hide. But 16 is going to be way too early to be shutting things down. The road games to, New England and the Jets. Now, look, these are games where, you expect the Browns to put up good showings. These are teams that are more in a similar position to where the Cleveland Browns are currently. The Jets, and the Patriots. San Francisco, certainly, going to be, a tough matchup, one of the more physical teams in the entire NFL. Going out to Vegas again, a game that they obviously should have won last year. Maybe things will obviously be a little bit different this year with Carroll and Geno Smith and, Ashton Genty and Baltimore. It's, it's still the standard in the AFC North. It's been the standard in the AFC North. And for now, it's a Pittsburgh team that, doesn't look, but I'm guilty of saying this every year about the Steelers. And then every year you see that double-digit stinking win total next to them. But you gotta prove some things here. You know what I'm saying? And it may not get to the point where we get out of this year and that's it. Shador, Gabriel, either this is the guy. That's it. It's finally over. But maybe some of the other questions in regards to the other positional groups can certainly, be talked about, more confidently in terms of improvement.
Very good. Next up, Casey Kinnaman, start back here at week 1. Sorry that I couldn't see anything on that other schedule, Mike. It all kind of bleeds together. And it's really far away. So I'll go through it with you here, Casey.
The first thing that jumps off is just the gauntlet that you face right off the rip. I mean, if I just look at all the way to the bye, this team's either going to be battle tested or broken, just based on the lineup that they're facing right off the rip. But I'm with you, Brad. I think it kind of softens up on the back half. In fact, their final 6 games, they get 4 of them at home. You know what I mean? So if you can tread water and to get to that bye, I think you can at least be playing relevant football come December, which I think coming off last season, just that alone would be a victory for me. Just get to December and be playing meaningful football games. Fred, do you know which 2 games are the 4 o'clock window?
Yeah, the Vegas game because it's out west, and then the Ravens, the second one, at home is probably the closest to prime time. That'll be the CBS game, like at 4:30.
Week 11. So
Well,
back
that's
to
my-
back.
Both 11
4
and
o'clock.
12. 11
Yeah.
and 12.
That's one of my other takeaways is like I don't mind occasional primetime games. I like getting excited for it. And but when you're coming off a 3-win season, the league's telling you what they think of you right here. You're all at one. Now, for people who cover the team, being done at 1 o'clock, that's a godsend. I can't deny that. But I will miss having a Sunday night football game, a Thursday night game. I don't like when they go crazy with it. But and just based on what I'm looking at here, I don't think we're going to be a flex target.
Now, let's put it this way. If we end up with a
on.
primetime game, we're going to be happy about it.
Keep your hopes up there. Come on, they can pull it off. Get flexed in a prime time.
Tell him, Brad, now who's the curmudgeon?
Yeah. Dude, that's insane to not give them one primetime game. I'm furious. That's
I
outrageous.
think
the
I think
Panthers
all
treatment.
32 teams should be scheduled for one. Hey, if you get yanked, that's on you. But, every fan base should
Agreed.
have the opportunity, to at least, get your team under the. And, for one, you're telling me, where you scheduled Tennessee and where you scheduled Cleveland. And I think that was week 14 or whatever, what week 13?
Week 14.
There you go, 14. There, you know what? There's a beautiful Thursday night game. Ideally,
would've
the
been
Browns
good
would be
for
starting one of their rookie quarterbacks. Ideally, Cam Ward's still healthy. And, you just leave that one. Because, look, people are going to watch the Chiefs anyway, man. We're going to watch the Eagles games anyway. They're usually the better games on TV. I don't need to have, 8 Philadelphia Eagle primetime games. But
Facts.
that's just hey, if they take it away from you because your team is, cheeks, that happens, but every team should be scheduled for at least one night game.
I'm with you. I get getting done with them early, but there's an excitement around primetime games that obviously is undeniable and is a lot of fun, especially when they're at home. Anyways, you ready, Pete?
Yeah, the Bengals game is a huge opportunity for them right out of the gate. The Browns are typically more physical. We'll see if that offensive line for the Bengals is worth a damn this year. Hopefully Cordell Volson is still snugly starting at left guard. After that, it becomes all about that defensive line for the Browns. They've invested significantly. Those 3 games right in a row, Baltimore, Green Bay, Detroit, they're going to get their opportunity to sort of make a statement as to who they are. Detroit stands out. They are the line of scrimmage team in the NFL. Having said that, if I was going to pick a time to play Detroit, it'd be earlier in the year. And the reason is because they endured so many injuries last year that some of those guys, we don't know when some of those guys are going to be back. It is not unlike the Browns when they went to the playoffs after 2023 and you just kept hemorrhaging people, and at some point it was going to catch up with you, and it did the next year, in addition to a number of other factors. But the Lions are a phenomenal football team, but they're going to be I think they're going to gain steam over the course of the year because I think they're going to get, unless they endure a bunch of injuries at the beginning of the season, I think they're going to gain steam because they're going to get players back and back and back. So I think if you're going to play that team earlier is probably better. But going, and at least it's a short trip to go to Detroit before you got to go to the UK, where we do get our nationally televised game. It's fantastic, 9:30 a.m. start. But after that, look, your first game against a team with a losing record from last year is the Miami Dolphins. I love the fact that it's at home. We already knew that part. We don't have to go play in their bullshit stadium where the sun is 120 degrees on your team and is a comfortable 70 for them. And again, this becomes, whether it's Miami, Pittsburgh, New England, these teams, if the Browns are going to be the team they need to be this season, those are the games where their identity needs to start showing through. They're more physical. They can run the football. They can grind out. They can put the other team's quarterback in hell. The Dolphins' offensive line is a huge question mark entering this year. The Patriots' offensive line is a huge question mark this year. In addition to the fact they've got a young quarterback in Drake May, certainly that's going to be an exciting game for those two teams. And getting the bye in the middle of the season is probably for the best. And I think, and for that reason, in as much as, we can talk about must wins, I think the New England Patriots game right before the bye week is such a massive opportunity for them to get a win on the road, which is not easy in any environment. But if you can get that win and coast in the bye, I think you're going to feel pretty good about yourselves coming into the second half of the stretch where it does get easier. And you are going to face a rookie in Cam Ward, and you are going to face, the Las Vegas Raiders, who I have no idea what they're going to be like this year, other than the fact that they are probably going to be trying to mimic the Browns in some ways in terms of being a more physical team with Ashton Genty, but they've got a good quarterback in Geno Smith. So they're sort of a wild card. And then what are the 49ers this year? People have crushed their draft. People have accused them of taking a massive step back from a year where they took a step back. Are they going to reclaim sort of their former glory because they've been a hell of a team? But like all of a sudden you sit there and you go, are they really that good? This is your opportunity to find out. And the Browns put them in hell the last time they played the 49ers. Brock Purdy was awful in that game. The Browns just absolutely destroyed them. And PJ Walker was able to get a game-winning drive against that team. So, look, I mean, if you're the Browns, and I'm sure Kevin Stefanski's going to say this, every one of these is a huge opportunity. I agree with that. It's just not going to be easy.
That last four is interesting. It really is. At Chicago, Buffalo home, Pittsburgh home. I mean, there are opportunities riddled throughout the schedule. I'll say that. You want to walk us through your thoughts here, Fred?
Well, I mean, those first 6 games, all winning records. And that's what buried the team last year. In the NFL, sometimes if you get going on a roll early, you can get things going. And, obviously I think a lot had to do with the quarterback play, but they were 1-6. Season was over. Everybody knew the season was over, offense, defense. So that's where at the beginning you got to get on a roll. They do have the bye right in the dead center after 8 weeks. And that allows you to make a decision, at that point. Are you still relevant, or do you turn the rest of the season over to look at the younger guys? That's the biggest thing. Of the last 8 games, 5 of them are at home. And last year they weren't very good at home. You need to turn that home field into, a weapon and reestablish that. And if you can tread water, stay relevant at the bye and get healthy or whatever, you have a chance down the stretch because of the schedule at that point. But you will have to steal a game here or there. And you think about last year, the NFC East is who they played. That buried their season. They lost all 4 of those games, and so you play the NFC North and 3 of them early. In fact, in a row, so you have to come out of there and not get your season buried, so Unfortunately, that's the way it is in the NFL. There's no bye games. There's ones here I can tell you right now. You look and think, oh, that's a win, and you'll get to that, and it'll be, there's no way they're going to win, or vice versa. It just seems like every year teams get, like last year, Washington, I'm sure most of us had that, as a win for the Browns early in the season. They were going with a rookie quarterback, and they blitzed the Browns. So, yeah, that's my early thing. Is I do think the early part sets tone. Just throw it out here, since the preseason starts on August 8th. They play at Carolina. It's a Friday night, and then the next week they're at the Eagles on the Saturday afternoon at 1. So there's your primetime game, I think. And then the only home one is against the Rams on the 23rd. They're going to practice with the Panthers before that game down in Carolina, and then they're going to Philadelphia to practice with them. So those will also be a chance to evaluate the rookie quarterbacks and so forth there. So, who knows? For May, you can be optimistic and think, this could go any of a number of ways, but we all know a lot depends on the quarterback play and not losing games. Like last year, the turnovers just lost games. And so if they go into it with the two-headed monster, with Judkins, Sampson running the ball 30 times, you take it out of the quarterback having to always, put the ball in the air. Of course, they're going to have to somewhere, but that gives you, a much better weapon to do the play action pass and so forth. So I think a lot of it, again, it will be on the offense. I think the defense will get themselves back into, playing well enough to win. I really think the defense, like a lot, kind of fell off the turnip truck when the team was 1-6. So hopefully they'll get off to a good start, and then anything can happen.
Michael Keefe, break it down for me, sir.
Man, I always love looking at this because you just know that middle back part of the schedule that we're all looking at going, okay, it lightens up right there. One or two of those teams is going to be much better this year than they were last year. And you look at this beginning first 6 weeks or so, and there's probably going to be a couple teams in there that maybe either aren't as good as they were last year in total or get off to a slow start. But that's, to me, the best thing about the NFL is that there's no team that isn't winnable, or there's no game that isn't winnable. And you see it year in and year out. All I got to do is take you back to Colt McCoy spanking the New England Patriots and Tom Brady to remind you that every game is winnable. For me, I like the fact that the Browns look like they're going to get tested early. I think if they can find a way into a couple wins early, it could do big things for their confidence and understanding that they can compete. Because again, guys, I keep seeing all this, and again, without a quarterback, I don't think it's unfair. So let me start by saying this: without a quarterback, I don't think it's unfair. But I keep seeing everything saying everybody's season predictions for the Cleveland Browns hasn't finished as one of the worst teams in the NFL again this year. And I think the roster, we're still on a roster that won 11 games the year before, or a good chunk of a roster that won 11 games the year before. So I think if they can get some contributions, again, if the defense comes back around with some good additions, and offensively, if you can find a way to score some points and you can get Kevin Stefanski with his offense again, and they're not trying to incorporate something that doesn't quite fit, this team is definitely more in between the 11-win and 3-win seasons than they are like just certainly a 3-win team. So again, it's going to depend on when you catch these teams. It's going to depend on how they're playing. There's so much about it, but that's the fun of talking about this all off season is we get to prep, and then they go out and play games. And I think the Cleveland Browns can have a pretty solid season.
I think the other thing to look at here, though, is I mean, you look at the second half, and ideally, we're talking about one of or both rookie quarterbacks, as opposed to trying to say, "Hey, let's get excited for Bailey Zappi." I mean, which should make the second half of the season here, and hopefully, I mean, look, this is what you're looking for. You're looking for growth. You're looking for improvement. We want to see Mason Graham. We want to see Schlesinger, obviously Fannin, the two rookie running backs. I mean, there's a lot here, and this will be indicative to how it's viewed, and essentially how 2025 has gone. And, I think that's pretty, crucial and, will be paramount certainly to, how 2025 is viewed overall, and probably most likely, certainly the second half, week 10 on after that week 9 bye.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, you guys want to take a peek at Jacksonville's schedule? Let's do that.
Ooh, that's a good
worthwhile.
idea.
Yeah, I think so. I'm gonna try to throw that baby up and just see if there's anything worth gleaning from this. Okay. Here we go. Come on, baby. A little help tonight. All right. Can we see that? Sort of. Let me make it bigger. Can we see that?
Sure.
It's that Panthers, Bengals, Texans at home, 49ers away, Chiefs, Seahawks. So their start is rather, I don't know, Panthers week 1 is obviously favorable, but I guess
Not the way the Panthers were playing towards the end of last season.
Yeah.
Panthers closed out pretty strong.
Yeah, it's hard to judge these teams before.
Plus,
we've
it's
seen
week
any of
1.
them.
You always get the weirdest things that happen on week 1 anyway.
Yeah, you do. Texans, I expect to probably be pretty good. 49ers, to Pete's point, are I don't know if they know if they're selling or staying. You know what I mean? Or trying to win. It's kind of all over the place. Chiefs, obviously good. Seahawks. What do you guys expect out of the Seahawks this year?
Bad.
Bad? Okay.
Mike McDonald does a hell of a job coaching defense, but I just don't see the talent. I don't see the offensive line to protect a guy who needs it in Sam Darnold. I don't see weapons for him to throw the ball. I'm rooting like hell for them in week 6, but other than that, I don't know where you feel great about the Seahawks.
I like their draft, but they unloaded their offensive identity. So starting from scratch, defensive head coach. I'm with Pete. I don't see the overall talent on that side of the ball to carry them. It seems like, in my mind, it felt like they were closer than they must have felt internally to go ahead and sell off Geno and get rid of DK and move the parts around that they did.
Yeah, it's interesting. Rams bye week, week 8 favorable. Raiders, Texans, Chargers should probably be pretty strong, right? Cardinals, Titans, Colts, Jets, Broncos, Colts, Titans. Listen, it's not. I wonder what their strength of schedule is. It doesn't appear to be that strong of a schedule. What do you guys think?
I'll trade him right now.
Yeah, we'll take that trade. We should have included the schedule in the trade for Travis. Jacksonville, strength of schedule. Jeff, what do you think? Jeff, what's still with us? Jeff is gone. All right, let's take this down. All right, guys. Thoughts on the schedule as a whole? Final thoughts here. We can get out of here. There'll be plenty of time to evaluate this thing in the coming days and months. But as we know, with recent news. Okay, let's just go through this real quick. Browns signed 2 safeties. Obviously, DeMonte Casey and Rayshon Jenkins. And they signed 3 wide receivers from tryouts. JOK will be out all of 2025, which is obviously stings. They had rookie minicamp. They are now in phase 2 still, I believe, of OTAs, where the rookies now have joined the rest of the team. They are getting on the grass with their coaches and whatnot at this point. So perfect play stuff is allowed and stuff like that. So they are working their way towards whatever this will be. I think one thing me and Pete talked about was last night on the React is their approach coming away from rookie minicamp is clear that they're going to try to get reps to multiply reps by going faster and even doing like 7-on-7 sessions like would normally be like a break period. They're going to have guys out there like doing a 7-on-7. At least that's what they've alluded to. So they're going to try to get as many reps for these rookies as they can and for the 4 quarterbacks as they can. Final thoughts on all of that, along with what you saw here is the schedule tonight, Casey?
Well, the practice approach, when you think about the condensed runway they're facing to evaluate these quarterbacks and to get up to speed before they get into their draft cycle, great. All the reps. Get them all the reps. Can't have enough reps for those guys. The schedule, man, we already knew the who and the where. We just didn't know the when. It opens up tough. I mean, there's no way to sugarcoat that. But there's like we know that they play well against the Bengals. If you can get off to a good start there, and I'm actually not mad that you go to Baltimore week 2. Let's get that out of the way. Let's get that road trip to Baltimore out of the way early. We'll actually see them again week 11. Packers could be fool's gold. They're talented, but they have yet to take that secondary step.
Yeah.
At the Lions, that's a tough one to swallow. And then go to London, whereas I know it's considered a home game for us, but aren't the Vikings there the week before as well?
They are. They will be staying over there. Yeah.
That doesn't feel favorable to me.
Does not.
But it's all about keeping your head above water by the time you get to week 7 against the Dolphins. Because if you can get the Dolphins and New England going into the bye, carry a little bit of momentum with you, you never know what could happen over the second half.
Yeah, I'm with you there, Casey. It's about getting the wins you can. Maybe injuries or something gives you a favorable chance to sneak out a win that you didn't think was possible on the schedule in the first 6. But getting to week 7 feels like beyond that, and especially because you don't know who the quarterback is going to be, right? Like, and at that point, it could be somebody different. If you get to week 7, there's opportunity there if you're still afloat injury-wise, right? Like you're not riddled with injuries at that point. And maybe you have a quarterback coming on, Shador or Gabriel, hopefully not Pickett, coming on to maybe take over at that point. And you get a lot of teams get an automatic lift from that kind of, or something like, it can be artificial, it can be real, but they get
like
a
when
lift.
You fire a head coach, you get that bump.
You get that little bump there and sending you into the second half of the season. Maybe you get hot because the second half could end up being weaker than, like, really weak. It could be better than stronger than it looks, but on paper it looks like their schedule is loaded up front and weaker on the back end. Pete, any final thoughts on the schedule, and what they can do to try to stay alive maybe until that second half of that thing?
They've said what they want to be in terms of identity. It becomes a matter of being able to achieve it and achieve it quickly. If they can come out and play, run the ball well, control the line of scrimmage, play defense, they can be a problem especially for teams like the Bengals, who are maybe more finesse than they can sort of outmuscle them. If they can get that going and get enough out of the passing game, they're a team that has the potential to be somebody other teams don't want to play. And if they can get that and win games doing it, that could be something that they can build on.
I agree. Any thoughts on I know you said the schedule doesn't matter to this, but is there any thoughts on, as far as the quarterbacks wise, the way the schedule plays out?
No, I mean, again, it comes down to they need to win football games, and they need to play the guy who's going to help them do that. It's very easy to dismiss it and say, oh, it's whatever. They'll just take a quarterback next year. I think this team needs to win games. I think this locker room needs to enjoy success. I think they desperately need that breath of fresh air after Deshaun Watson last year.
Yeah.
They need to fumigate the stink out of the building and get guys feeling good about playing football.
100%. 100%. And I kind of like what they're pushing as far as culture change. You felt a shift from the way Stefanski talks. If you've seen some of the clips, to your point that you pointed out earlier, Pete, that, earned toughness, earn a spot on the team, earn a role. Where last year it felt like for 9 weeks, the QB1 spot was given, right? So I feel like reestablishing that is pretty critical case.
Yeah, and we just got to hope it's just not lip service. You know how they do this messaging, and it echoes through the building, and we've seen it shift from year to year, kind of different things, and that's what they need to be. And the change of approach to practice when you're coming off a 3-win season, you need to shake some things up, and I think that's the way to do it. Change your practice habits, be more aggressive, and really just grind competition. And as long as you're evaluating it honestly, that's the best case scenario. That way, if one of these rookie quarterbacks emerge, that they actually earned it. That's what we want to see.
I'll say this as a parting thought, and you guys can add anything if you want as we'll get out of here tonight. Appreciate you guys all joining for the 2025 schedule release show. An hour and 40 minutes or so of content about your Cleveland Browns, and then the schedule breakdown with more to come here on the OBR streaming network. Make sure you hit like, subscribe, and the notification bell. So, every time we go live here on the network, me and Case will be back tomorrow night, even getting deeper in the weeds with y'all, and who knows what else we've got planned as usual. All right, let's throw this up real quick. Back to week 1. Let's just say this. Week 1 at home against Cincinnati. Both, we don't know what Cincinnati, we know what they are on offense when they're healthy, right? But we don't know what they are on defense. And the Browns are just kind of an unknown until they prove anything. There's, what people think they're going to be. But what they can be against week 1 against Cincinnati at home, a team they've continued under Stefanski to have success against, presents an incredible opportunity to go 1-0. And if you could go 1-0, it eases the burden heavily for the next 3-4 weeks. Going 0-1, and then at Baltimore, Green Bay, Detroit, and then overseas to play the Vikings, it could get bad real fast. You know what I mean? So to me, it puts a lot of emphasis on what happens in week 1.
We're basically bizarro Cincinnati. That you were laying that out. We don't know what to expect on offense. Kind of know what to expect on defense. When these two teams match up, the Browns' defense matches up really well against Cincinnati's offense. This has to be an ugly game, because if it's not, you can't. It's unrealistic, I think, to expect this offense is just kind of coming together to keep pace with the Bengals with the way they score. So the defense has to bog it down. Basically, we can't rely on a rainstorm to pop up out of nowhere like we did in 23, but you need a similar kind of a slog of a game to give yourself a good chance to win the home opener.
Yeah, well said. Final thoughts, Pete, again?
Yeah, look, again, it's an opportunity to come out strong the first week. It's a team you've had success against historically, and that would certainly be a welcome change of pace. Give some juice that this team could desperately use. Just get them feeling good coming right out of the gate. But after that, I mean, it's a slog. They're going to have to scratch and claw and hopefully, forge themselves into something that is both enjoyable in terms of what you're watching, but also something that can be sustainable and help them ultimately be a successful football team.
Yeah. Defense is going to have to play out of its mind, keep them in some games. That's what I kind of to give them a chance early, but it'll be fun regardless. And there's a long way to go before any of that happens. So thank you guys all for joining us here on the 2025 schedule release show at the OBR. Thanks for everybody that stopped by, including Jeff Lloyd, Fred Greetham, and who else was here? Michael Keefe. And then, of course, the great Casey Kinnaman and the always fantastic Pete Smith. My name is Brad Ward. Hit like, subscribe, and the notification bell so you are locked in fully for this ride of 2025 Cleveland Browns with us on the OBR streaming network. And with that, we're going to get out of here. Enjoy your evening. Thanks for being with us. Have a good night.